Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Hope you're doing well. So do me a favor before we get started. I need you to hit this like button. If you're not a subscriber, I need you to do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and notification bell next to it so that you will not miss an episode. So chime in on my IG when you get a chance. The IG page is elevation underscore mentor. So today we're going to talk about credit. I am working on my credit. Why is credit important in the first place? Well, credit is important for several reasons, but one of the main reasons for building wealth is they look at your personal credit for a lot of things. And one of those things is when you start buying real estate. All right. They look at your personal credit. Now, if you're a first time home buyer, um, you can get a home regardless of what your credit looks like by going to places like NACA. They don't care what your credit score is. But when you become a real estate investor and you are buying property after property after property, like you have a goal of obtaining assets, then they start to look at your credit and they start caring about your credit. All right, so I am going for the DSCR loan. So that's kind of a loan that people don't want you to know about. Keep it under wraps. You're wondering how are these people getting all these houses with no money? So that's a special kind of loan. Some instances where your credit doesn't matter is when you start to get into other kind of financing, like owner financing, subject to. But I am at the DSCR point in my life right now, and so working on my credit. The interesting thing that I'm finding is that when it comes to your credit, the number that is on the actual websites, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, they use a completely different. The lender is using a completely different number. So that's one thing I'm finding that is interesting. So what have I done thus far to increase my credit score? Well, the first goal was to look at um, late payments, right? So looking at the late payments and disputing those on the actual website, like going to the actual website, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and then disputing late payments online by asking for a goodwill deletion. So that was one point of a way to increase the score. Another thing that I did also was looked at collections. So you can see everything when you go to the website, when you go to Experian, you can see your whole credit report. Just going to the website, Experian.com. So looking at the collections, what are the collections, and then disputing those collections right online. So I did that. So Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So that was another point of attack. Another thing I did was looked at my credit cards. So the amount that you have on your credit cards makes a difference in regards to what your credit score will be. So keeping it less than 2%, less than 2% is going to give you the maximum score. Um, and then the one thing I learned is don't wait until a certain date. Just pay it down periodically. And the goal is less than 2%. So let's see. You got a $5,000 credit card. 2% of that, that's nothing, right? Less than $100. So keeping your credit cards like that is going to boost your score. So they actually look at that and they report that. They report it once a month. How much do you have charged on your credit card? And if you have a whole lot charged on your credit card, that's going to make the score go down. But if you have a little bit charged on the credit card, that's going to make the score go up. So periodically paying on that with a goal of less than 2%. Now, sometimes I didn't meet the goal. Sometimes they caught me at 5%, for example. But just knowing that, um, that's a piece of knowledge that most people don't have, that they're actually looking at how much is on your credit card, and you can maneuver your credit score by getting it under less than 2%. So you hear the number 30% a lot, right? You hear 30%, 30% credit utilization, but less than 2% is going to give you the maximum, the highest credit score. So that's another thing, another point of target that I targeted. And then doing that one, that's like a consistent type of thing. So um, that one has to be like a habit, like form into a habit. Like how much do I have on my credit card and monitoring that. So that is another point of attack that I did. Removing hard inquiries. Removing hard inquiries. Now, hard inquiries is interesting because when you go to a car dealership for a loan, they're putting hard inquiries on your report, and they could be asking multiple lenders, right? So all these things are going on your report without you even knowing about it. And then if you're looking for property, the lenders, they can be putting hard inquiries on your report without you knowing about it. So it's optimal to keep those hard inquiries low, because when you have like a whole bunch of hard inquiries, the lender looks at you as risky. So that is my next point of attack is hard inquiries. And so as far as hard inquiries go, what I did is I wrote a letter to each of the bureaus, to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Prior to doing that, I went to LexisNexis and froze my accounts. So LexisNexis froze it, made sure there was a freeze, and then wrote the letter to the different bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, regarding these hard inquiries. One important thing about hard inquiries is that I made sure not to dispute any hard inquiry for any line that I want to keep open, because if you do that, they could potentially close that line. So that's the important thing about that. Also, being truthful is important, because there are other ways to remove hard inquiries, and that would be to go to websites like identitytheft.gov. Um, and so if you were to do something like that, then you want to make sure that you really have fraud going on, right? So being truthful is important when it comes to, you know, business in general. Honesty. Honesty is important, right? Because if you're not honest, that's going to come back and bite you in the butt. All right, so that is my that's what I'm working on now, is the hard inquiries. So I already sent the letters off to the different bureaus, and it's going to take them some time to get the letter and open the letter, read the letter, and then we'll see what impact those hard inquiries have. So one thing that's interesting in the pursuit of this DSCR loan is that the credit score that's on the websites is kind of meaningless when it comes to the lender. So say, for example, Experian. When I go to Experian website, Experian.com, my credit score is 746, right? Okay, so when I'm talking to my lender, guess what my credit score is? 678. So that's a big difference. So I asked the lender, I say, well, I can see my credit score on these websites. Why is my credit score in the 700s on the websites? And you're coming back saying that is 678. The 678, remember that's an improvement because the last time I talked to the lender, he said it was a 649, right? So from 649 to 678. So I asked the lender, I said, why is my credit score 678 when all of the credit bureaus are saying that my credit is in the 700s? And so his response is that they use a different credit score model. And he says that there are 10 different models and they all score differently. He says it's a pretty silly system because it makes things very confusing for both the lender and the consumer. He said it's not a ton of clarity with the credit score situation. So I found that to be interesting. He's saying that there are 10 different models out here. So they are not going to Experian and ask them what your credit score is. Did you find that to be interesting? So he says there are 10 different models out here and they all score differently. So depending on where you go, your score could be different everywhere, right? So that makes no sense at all. That makes no sense at all. So the credit score is not a stable number. Okay, so it's on Experian. So this is what the lenders are going to see. So every different lender is going to see a different number when it comes to your credit score. Don't you think that's don't you think that's weird? He said there are 10 different models and they all score differently. So, depending on what model the lender is using, they're going to have a different score for you everywhere. He says it's a pretty silly system and it makes things very confusing for the lender and the consumer. So I just think that's interesting because I would think that if the credit bureaus are telling you that your credit score is a certain number, then that's what everybody would go by, but they don't. All right. So what I gather from that is if you go from lender to lender, each one is going to have a different credit score for you. And why is that important? That's important because when it comes to this loan, they base how much your down payment is going to be based on what the credit score is. So the higher the credit score, the lower the down payment you're going to have to pay. But if your credit score is not so good, then you're going to have to pay a high down payment. And this loan, the lowest for this loan is a 20% down payment, but they go all the way up to 30% down payment. So when your credit score is not so well, then you're going to be paying a 30% down payment when you could be paying a 20% down payment if you have good credit. So a 678, where they say that I am at, they would do a 25% down payment. So 649, where I was at previously, it was a 30% down payment. And so that's why it's important. The better your credit score, the lower the down payment. And that's how the system works. Of course, credit is not important when you get into the other types of financing, like owner financing, subject to. But I'm at this point right now, doing the DSCR loan, and then eventually I will branch out into the other types of financing. And so why is that important? So let's see. Say if you're going for a $165,000 property, just for an example. Say your credit score is not so good, so you need to pay a 30% down payment. So 30% of this, that would mean you would have to pay 49,500 for this property. On the other hand, say you're going for this $165,000 house, and since they're going based off of this credit score, a good credit score, you can get it for 20% down payment. So 20% of this, that's 33,000 that you have to come up with. All right. So I just think the system is interesting. And then just knowing the importance of a good credit score, right? So knowing the importance of a good credit score. Why? Why is it important? Who cares? All right. So this is where I am at right now. Let's see here. If you are not an investor, you're not in the stock market, and you would like to learn how to invest, check out my link below and join the waitlist for the investing group. Also, check out the link below. I have a hat collection, and this is in regards to dating. So check that out. Also, feel free to leave a comment. All right. So thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. And before you leave, I need for you to hit that like button on your way out. All right. Have a good rest of your day. Bye for now.